Texas is one of the states trying to block the COVID vaccine mandate coming from the Biden administration on private companies with more than 100 employees. What impact would that have? Well, we're joined by Paul Seegert from PCS Advisers. He's been a good resource on this so far. And Paul, first off, this January 4th vaccine deadline for private businesses. What are you hearing from the employers that you work with on this?
I think what we're finding is that this is tougher for employers that are at the smaller end of the spectrum that are affected. It's a tougher thing for them to manage. It's another cost. They already have a pretty lean HR department typically, and now they're looking at adding another significant workload to that small department. And then they're also more likely to be affected in terms of their staffing. When you're United Airlines and you lose 2,000 to 3,000 employees, but you have 67,000, that might be something you could absorb a little more easily than an employer with 150 employees that loses 3 or 4 really important people. I was talking to an employer this week that has very skilled labor for what they do, and they have federal contracts, and they've lost a few very key employees that are very difficult to replace, and it's got them very concerned. So it's affecting them differently than those really large employers. Even before the presidential mandate was announced, 85% of the really large employers we talked to were telling us they were going to put in a mandate voluntarily. They didn't need the mandate to do it. It's affecting different sizes in different ways.
Now, which employers are feeling emboldened enough to challenge the mandate at this point?
What we're seeing is in states that are pushing back, employers, I think, will have the opportunity during this period of, frankly, confusion around it to kind of pick which guideline they're going to follow, and likely they won't be penalized. That's not legal advice by any means, but that's what we have seen in other requirements that affected employers that were really kind of undefined. This is clearly going to get fought out in the courts. Some people say there's no legal basis for challenge, and others say quite the opposite. But when you look at the fact that OSHA has never used their emergency temporary standard authority to enforce a vaccine mandate, it is new, it is different. They're going to have to be able to prove, certainly in court, that it represents grave danger and this is necessary to save employees' lives. And that grave danger is not well defined by case law. What is interesting to note is that OSHA has a pretty poor track record of defending these emergency temporary standard actions that they've taken historically. 2 out of 3 end up not surviving legal challenge, or at least not fully surviving legal challenge. So I know there's a lot of folks out there saying this is a clear-cut case and they have the authority to do it. I don't know that that's true, and we're going to find out. That's going to be up to the courts.
That's Paul Seegert from PCS Advisers.